Well, I'm glad to have Mr. Sheriff Larry Amerson on the phone with me this afternoon. He's going to chat a little bit with some of the gun control debate that's been going on for quite some time, I guess the last month, since some of the tragedies that we've experienced in the country. And we've kind of been trying to get the pulse of some of the folks around our area, some of our representatives. And Sheriff, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for the invitation. Glad to talk about these issues.
Well, we talked earlier off the air that you had been on a phone call with the White House and just kind of talking about some of the things that were coming down the line, or maybe them outlining some of the ideas they had this afternoon. It may not be too much new information, but what can you tell us about that call?
The White House, the Vice President's office, reached out to the organizations that they had sought recommendations or suggestions from, and the National Sheriff's Association was represented at an earlier meeting at the White House, where we were able to make recommendations to them on ways we can address issue of violence.
Okay, and so it was just kind of a follow-up call then? It
was to tell us, again, some more discussion about what their goals were overall, and to see if there were any questions by anybody about the nature of the comments that were made today.
Sure. Well, there are stories out there, some sheriffs in the country not too happy or are very cautious at best about some of the ideas that are being floated right now in Washington. And there was a story earlier today out Oregon and Texas, just a couple of examples where some sheriffs, or there was even legislation, talking about refusing to take any action on gun control plans that they feel violate the Constitution. What are your thoughts on those stories? Have you read any of those today or seen those?
Oh, I've seen several. There was a sheriff in Kentucky who announced that. There's one or two in Oregon, and I think there was one in Michigan as well who made those type statements. A couple of factors. One is, if I support the Constitution calls for three branches of government: the legislative, who makes the laws, the executive, who carries them out, and the courts, who decide on the legality of those actions. So if you support one part of the Constitution, it seems reasonable and logical to me that you would support it all. And I'm not the guy who makes laws. There may be laws. There's laws I don't think are the best written ones out there, but again, my duty is to enforce the law. Another issue that these guys bring up is that their oath of office gives them some extraordinary authority. And I'll give you the Alabama for an example. Every elected official in Alabama takes the same oath of office. So the oath for sheriff does not give me the authority to defy federal law or state law. My job is to enforce the laws that were passed. And if I disagree, I have the right to take to the court and try to get those laws overturned, or talk to the legislature to get them changed.
Okay, so you would, in case you didn't agree with it and you thought it was big enough of a deal to follow up on it, you would, one would, either as a citizen or as your chair as a sheriff, would bring that before the courts and try and change that, right?
Well, absolutely. The sheriffs of Alabama work with our legislators, and we meet with them, and we debate and sometimes argue, and to work on what the end result of particular laws are going to be. The same thing on the national level at the National Sheriff's Association. We walk the halls of Congress. We're in their offices discussing with them. And we just, for example, this year, we just got the Hatch Act amended, which has to do with money issues and office holders and how it affects us. But we got those changes. We got some other laws changed when preserving radio frequencies. And there's a number of things that we do, and that's the way our country was designed to operate.
Right, sure. Okay, so let's kind of take a step back and look at, well, just the tragedies that sparked this whole debate to begin with. What are some ways that you can think of that we could help prevent the tragedies that has sparked the whole debate this time around, while not infringing on a Second Amendment right to for a citizen to protect themselves from possibly from either an intruder in their home or even a government that may turn tyrannical on them if that were to happen. What are some ways that you see as a law enforcement officer that we can better this?
Well, I'll give you some examples here in Calhoun County. Right after the Columbine shooting, I asked a group of people to come, and we had about 70 people. We met for 6 months, and we looked at what we could do to prevent violence in schools, because the kids at Columbine had never been arrested. They'd not been on the radar of law enforcement. They hadn't been really discipline problems at the schools. They just were different. And Family Links was what came out of that. And they work with the school system. We try to help at-risk young people to keep them from drifting way off the path to become people who would use violence. So we see that as something that we need to work on, and having school resource officers in the schools are certainly a factor. Those resource officers work with the school administration, and if there's problems with fights, or if there's counseling with students, or whatever we need to do to help them make the campus safe, we do that every day. So we see those are positive things that we need to continue to do and improve on as we go along.
Right. And if I didn't think about the Family Links program, I've had some kind of peripheral contact with them in the past, but could you give just a brief description of what they do to kind of help somebody understand that as a preventative measure?
What Family Links is designed for is at-risk or strong-willed children. If your child is using drugs or drinking, or they're not doing the things that you want them to do, is to be a good student and to be a good citizen, Family Links is there to support the parents. We have a classes called Parent Project, which teaches parents how to deal with an out-of-control child, and it gives them the ability to take positive actions to deal with them. We also give after-hours counseling, so if your child's out of control on Friday night at 10 o'clock, an on-call counselor can talk to them. Sheriff's Office, we send deputies out to help those enrolled in the Family Link, so that if, say, you got a single mom and she's got a 16-year-old child who's giving her trouble, we can send a deputy to stand there, not in the role of I'm going to lock you up, but to support the parent and make the child understand he's got to comply with the parental orders. So we do a lot of things of that sort to try to help the parents deal with these kids, and if we can deal with the kids before they get way out of control, then hopefully we won't go that far. So Family Links has been there. There's been over 2,000 young people been through that program. Over 80-something, I think 84% that participated said that they got a positive result and it improved their family life. So we think we're doing the kinds of things that need to be done to improve the safety and security of our schools.
Right. And you mentioned school resource officers, and that's something that I'd kind of wondered about because, for quite a while, I have seen school resource officers on campuses all over the county, and they've been a presence there. And as far back as I can remember right now, thinking about some of the tragedies, I can't remember exactly what sparked that, but I knew that there was a point in time that there weren't that many officers, sheriffs or police officers on campus, and then suddenly there was at least one there, and those are our school resource officers. Tell us a little bit about what they do. I mean, I know obviously some sort of a security aspect of it and other roles too. I mean, and you would never want them to be in a situation where they have to stop someone who is trying to harm the children, but they are there. But what are some of the other aspects that the school resource officers do?
Well, as you mentioned, we are the first line of defense. That officer is there to do everything they can to ensure the safety of the students and the teachers in the school. We're also in the counseling mode, if you will. If there's times that we'll sit in with the teacher dealing with maybe two kids have been in a fight. Maybe there's some big argument or there's some other event that goes on in the school. We're there to work with the school administration to deal with that. We're there to help them with the physical security so that we're keeping an eye out with problems. Maybe there's a security weakness, so we need to help them make sure that a back door stays locked. And part of our their duties every day is to make a survey, to literally walk all around the campuses of the schools to look for problems or issues. So we're a teammate with the school administration and teachers. We also teach classes to the students so that they begin to know that officer is a human being and not just a uniform that pulled them over on Saturday night. They know them and they talk to them, and we develop relationships with those children at those schools.
That's a great program. I really am a big fan of that, and I think that's great that you actually make sure they build a relationship with the students too. Because I mean, you can always say, that guy pulled me over," but if you know him, but then also them have an opportunity to really impact the students in a positive way too. I think that's fantastic. So, Sheriff Larry Amerson, thank you so much for taking a little time out this afternoon and talking with us here at K98.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.